Okay, what the pastors in San Nicolas did, they were able to change the climate and move it away from the devil into the hands of the pastor. You know, after we did it, I was so excited. Can you imagine a city where 130,000 lost sheep have a pastor in lots of 100? Because every group of 100 lost people have a shepherd that pastors them. In schools have prayer groups on the grounds. City Hall has prayer meetings there. Crime has gone down. The whole city changed. When it happened, I love it. But I'm a man of the book. I said, Lord, where in the book is that? I have been talking about it, but can you show it to me? I went to Uruguay. I gave them a report. It worked. I went to Brazil. We had church in the park. It worked. I went to Singapore. People got excited. But I kept saying, Lord, where in the book is? And as I'm walking toward the pulpit to preach, I got it. And I didn't want to miss it, so I preached it, and I took notes on myself. And said, okay, wait a moment, what was it that I said? It was so exciting, folks. So go with me now, and we're going to cover the Gospel of Luke. You see in Luke two different climates. From chapter 4 to chapter 9 is a hostile climate. Very hostile. Jesus is under constant attack. From chapter 10 on is a very friendly climate. So let's see how that happened, and we look at our notes on how to sustain the climate over a city. In chapter 3, verse 22, Jesus comes up from the waters, and the Father announces, for the benefit of Satan and his demons, this is my beloved Son, and in him I am well pleased. That was a declaration of war by God. He's telling Satan, this one doesn't belong to you. He belongs to me. Up to that moment, there were a couple demons on duty watching the baptism every day, you know. So dry sinner coming down, wet sinner coming up. Check, check. You know, the computers print out, you know. Which one is it? This is 17-48. Check, check. Dry sinner going down, wet sinner coming up. Then Jesus shows up and says, you have this one? No, I don't. I wonder. The computer is down? No, it's up. Let's watch. See what it is. And then Jesus goes down, and when he comes up, God says, go ahead and make my day. I have invaded your kingdom. This one is not on your computer because this is a parachutist. He's here to bring liberation. Then in chapter 4, verses 1 through 13, Satan himself squares off with Jesus and is defeated. If you look at verse 13, it says, and the devil finished every temptation and departed from him until an opportune time. Historically, we have interpreted that to mean that he left Jesus until the rematch at the cross. But Satan is too sour of a loser. If Mike Tyson is itching for a rematch, I mean, the devil won a rematch immediately. And I submit to you that he was right there when in verses 14 through 30 in chapter 4, his friends and neighbors are influenced by the devil and they become murderers. If you look carefully, you will see that in verse 15, they were all praising him. Verse 22, they were all speaking well of him. This is a very friendly, affirming crowd, speaking well of Jesus and praising him. But then what happened? They were all filled with rage and tried to kill him. Sociologically and psychologically, there is no explanation for this violent switch unless you factor in there supernatural evil. I submit to you that the devil mobilized his friends and neighbors in an attempt to kill Jesus. Of course, Jesus walked through them, and they can't hurt him. But then you have in verse 33 that one demon comes up, very cocky. He cries out with a loud voice and challenges Jesus. And Jesus tells him, be quiet. Verse 41, Satan switched from a gun to a machine gun. Many demons were coming out, and they were all saying the same thing. Very cocky, very challenging. Now in chapter 5 and chapter 6, now the devil mobilizes the Pharisees. In verse 22 of chapter 5, they are reasoning with unbelief. Verse 30, they are grumbling at his disciples, trying to drive a wedge. Chapter 6, verse 2, they are grumbling at Jesus about his disciples. Verse 7, they are watching him closely to see how to accuse him. They become prejudiced. And what happens next? Verse 11, they are all filled with rage and begin to discuss how to harm Jesus. Who mobilized them like this? I submit to you that it was the devil, because the Bible tells us that the Pharisees rejected God's purpose for their lives when they rejected the baptism of John. Then in chapter 7, major disaster. The greatest man ever born of a woman, Jesus' number one cheerleader, is plagued by doubts. And he wonders if Jesus is the one that is to come. Do you see the pattern? First the devil, then his friends and neighbors, then one demon, then many demons, then the Pharisees. Now John the Baptist is neutralized. Chapter 8, nature is manipulated by the devil to sink the boat in which Jesus is sailing. You say, Brother Ed, the text doesn't say that. You're right. But I think there is room to assume that the devil was involved because Jesus was forced to rebuke the storm. And there is no reason for the Creator to rebuke the creation unless the creation, the cosmos, has been manipulated by the forces of evil. So that I believe this is another instance where the devil was there, all present. Then in chapter 8, verse 26 through 36, a legion of demons comes up against Jesus. Now, if you know the story of this demonized person that was so violent that they will put him with chains to a wall, and he will bring the walls down and flee and terrorize a region. If somebody comes and makes that person normal, the least the local chamber of commerce should do is buy Jesus lunch. But what happens? Verse 37, they were all gripped with fear and asked Jesus to depart. Psychologically and sociologically, it doesn't make sense. Unless you factor in there supernatural evil. So look at the pattern. The devil against Jesus. Then he turns his friends and neighbors. Then one demon, many demons. John the Baptist neutralized. Nature, the Pharisees and the scribes. A legion of demons, eventually people that say, we want nothing to do with you. But chapter 9 is the darkest moment because his disciples are being used by the devil. The parallel passage is Matthew 16. And in Matthew 16, Peter speaks to Jesus, and Jesus says, depart from me, who? Say it. Satan. So that Peter became Satan's mouthpiece. And in chapter 9, verse 55, Jesus tells them, you do not know what kind of a spirit you are of. You know what that means? You have become demonized. The devil is using you. You want to destroy people, and I came to save people. And when you read the whole chapter, they want him to dismiss the multitudes. They laugh at the theological ignorance of the multitude. They cannot cast out a demon. Jesus, in a moment of apparent discouragement, he says, oh, perverted and unbelieving generation. Who did he call perverted and unbelieving? His disciples. How much longer must I put up with you? And then on the next page, Satan scores on a safety. Jesus' quarterback is sacked because they cannot cast out that demon. So at that moment, the devil is running high. If you look at verses 57 through 62, 3 attempts at recruiting, none of them successful. Do you see what I see here, brothers and sisters? A very hostile environment. Jesus is winning, but he's running out of space, to the point that first he loses John the Baptist, then he loses the disciples, then a demon can dig in until Jesus himself has to cast him out. Hostile environment. Skip chapter 10 and go to chapter 11 and see how the climate changes. All through chapter 9 and 10, Jesus is saying, and the Father is saying, listen, listen, listen. They are not listening. Look what happens in chapter 11, verse 1. They come to Jesus and say, Lord, teach us to pray. Now they are on the learning mode, right? Then in verse 14, one demon shows up, but it's a dumb demon. So he goes away quietly. Only another demon, for the rest of the gospel, challenges Jesus. So the demons are no longer cocky. They are very low-key. Then the multitudes increase in verse 29, so that he gets his disciples back. He gets the multitude back. He gets the demons very, very low-key now. And then the scribes, look at verse 35 through 52. He goes on the offensive. Woe to you, woe to you, woe to you. He's taking no abuse from them. He's inflicting tremendous damage on them. Go to chapter 12 now. Verse 1. Under these circumstances, after so many thousands of the multitude has come together, in plain sight and hearing range of the Pharisees, he calls them hypocrites. Chapter 13, the Pharisees, verse 17, are being humiliated. Verse 31, they come and say, go away because Herod wants to kill you. Folks, these are the guys that thought they were going to kill Jesus. They realize they can no longer kill him, so they say, my bigger brother is going to get you because I cannot do it. And Jesus said, go and tell that fox to go ahead and make my day. You see, it's a different climate. Do you see what I see? Then look at chapter 14, verse 4. They were silenced. Chapter 15, verse 2. All they can do is grumble. Chapter 16, verse 14. All they can do is scoffing. I'll tell you, folks, I play soccer, and when the other team is grumbling and scoffing, it's always when we are winning. When they cannot get the ball out of us, they say, oh, come on, you. That's what they are doing. Chapter 17, the apostles come and say, Lord, we like this. Increase our faith. Chapter 18, now he signs up the children in his own army. Chapter 19, the multitudes take an active role, and they descend on Jerusalem the way the Promise Keepers descended on Washington, D.C. So much so that the Pharisees says, look, the whole world is going after him. And they come to Jesus in verse 39 and say, teacher, rebuke your disciple. It's not a fair game. You have too many players on your team. You see how the climate changed? And now Jesus scores a touchdown in verse 45. He moves into the end zone, kicks the tables, grabs a lash, and gives them a beating. And then he scores the extra point also. Look at verse 47. And he was teaching daily in the temple. Verse 47. The multitudes become his shield because they want to kill him, but they are not, because the people are with him. You see the change? First the devil came against Jesus, got defeated, but he got his friends against him. Then he got the people against him. Then he got John the Baptist in doubt. Then he got the Pharisees going for it. Then he neutralized his own disciples. But from chapter 11 on, Jesus gets the apostles back, the disciples back, The multitudes increased. No demonic activity on the radar. Only two demons. One is a dumb demon, and the other is a demon in chapter 13 that caused a woman to be ill. And Jesus doesn't even address the demon. Heals the woman, and the demon has to fall back to hell. And now Jesus moves into the end zone and cleanses the temple. Look at chapter 20. He chooses to answer them no more. Verse 20 in chapter 20. They send spies. You send spies to a country over which you have no control. They are acknowledging that Jesus is outside of their control. And they feel that only the governor can punish Jesus, no longer them. Verse 26, they became silent. Verse 39 and 40, they lost their courage and they begin to praise Jesus. Do you see the sequence? Chapter 22, the devil is desperate. So what does he do? He enters Judas. And Judas cuts a deal and says, I will deliver him when the multitudes are not around. And now Jesus is baiting Satan. Because after he released Judas, he loved him to the very end. But when Satan entered into Judas, now Jesus no longer hang on to Judas. So Jesus faked to the left, swung to the right, and threw a Hail Mary pass that really, really put him over the top. Because Satan must have said something like this. I got it all wrong. I was using demons, friends, neighbors, nature, and failing. I should have used his disciples. Look at Judas. The first one that I tapped, this guy is a genius. He will deliver me. He will deliver him to me. But I need, and this is where Jesus was baiting him, I need another one. And in chapter 22, verse 31, Jesus said, Simon, Simon, Satan has requested permission to sift you like wheat. Permission has been granted. And the devil says, now I got him. And he shakes Peter in every direction. But he cannot turn him against Jesus. And on the day of Pentecost, Peter kneels down, grabs the gates of hell, pulls them open, and shouts, the first 3,000 in line, come up! And the devil watches in disbelief that this guy that he thought was going to be the most valuable player on his team is the one that jumped free the first 3,000 people, and 5,000 later on, and many thousands after that. And he keeps opening gates at the house of Cornelius, at the council of Jerusalem, all over. Tremendous change in climate. In verse 53, Jesus, chapter 22, becomes the ultimate lamb when he says, but this hour and the power of darkness are yours, take me in. Chapter 23, the devil has surrounded the cross with demons, so many of them, that they obscure the light of the sun. And he's using the people to hurt Jesus. He's using a thief, two thieves, to curse him. He blesses them, he blesses them, he blesses them. And eventually, when he dies, look what happens. The centurion, when he saw what happened, began praising God. And the multitude, when they saw what happened, went away beating their breasts. Jesus won on all counts. Pause for a moment now and track with me. Do you see the change, the difference in climate? 4 to 9, 11 to 24. The key is chapter 10. In chapter 10, Satan falls. Remember, the 70 came back with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject. And Jesus said, oh, that's very simple. The reason why the demons pop out and leave is because the big gun fell down. Who made him fall down? Not Jesus, although it was by the power of Jesus. It was the 70. Now listen carefully, folks. Listen carefully. What did the 70 do? You are lambs, they are wolves. Wolves hate lambs. But you lambs are going to do 4 things. You're going to bless and speak peace to them. You're going to fellowship with them. You're going to do good works for them, and going to preach the gospel to them. The devil can never hurt you, listen carefully, in one move. The devil needs 2 moves to be able to hurt you. I'm a friend of Dr. Cho, Cindy Jacobs, people that have met with the devil nose to nose. But after I listened to their testimony, there's no blood. Past the initial scare, I'm the devil, woo! Couldn't do anything to them. Why? Because the devil needs 2 moves. He needs a wolf to hurt you so badly that you choose not to forgive. When you get angry and you let the sun set on your anger, what do you give the devil? Say it. An opportunity. You give room to the devil. That's the first move. So now he is within a striking distance. Now he hurts you. But when in San Nicholas and the 70, we went to all the wolves and we blessed those that curse us. And we spoke blessings on those that were sending hexes our way. We voided all the jurisdictions that the devil was using to have authority over the city. And when all those jurisdictions were voided, Satan had no place to stand on, and he fell. And that's why thousands came to the prayer fair. That's why thousands got saved. That's why thousands keep coming to church now and saying, tell me, why am I here? Because Satan lost the authority when we blessed those that he was using as a jurisdiction to attack us. Now, if you are like me, you say, Ed, that's fascinating, but that's still the Gospels. Can you show it to me from the epistles? Good, I'll show it to you from the epistles. Go to Ephesians 6. In Ephesians 6, verse 10, we are told, finally, brethren, be strong in the Lord. To be strong in the Lord is to deal with all the issues of anger, ethnic issues, denominational issues, ministerial issues, gender issues, age issues, wealth issues. You know how it talks about neither Jew nor Gentile, all the saints together, all the ministers together, husband and wife together, parent and children together, master and slave together. That's being strong in the Lord. And then what follows next? And in the power of his might. Now we are going to do warfare. So verses 11 through 13 says, put on the full armor of God. The first thing you put on is the belt of truth. Say that with me. Belt of truth. The second thing you put on is the breastplate of righteousness. Say it. Breastplate of righteousness. So what is the first thing you put on? Belt of truth. Second one, who gives you the truth and the righteousness? That's the third weapon. The shoes of the gospel of God gives you the truth and the righteousness. But who chooses to walk in peace? We do. So that you get the truth, now you get the righteousness. You only put shoes when you're going to walk. I never wear shoes to bed. So when I put shoes, it's because I'm going to walk. So look what happens when you walk with the shoes of peace, blessing everybody in your immediate neighborhood. What is the next weapon that comes there? The shield of faith. To do what? Listen carefully, folks. This is it. To do what? To extinguish the flaming missiles or fiery darts of the enemy. If you know anything about missiles or darts, you never fire them next to the person. You fire them from a distance. What's the implication? That when you have blessed all the people that the devil has used to hurt you, you have voided all the jurisdictions. Now the devil flees. When the devil flees, he fights you from a distance, no longer hand-to-hand combat. And folks, this is the missing element in all the teaching we have so far about spiritual warfare. we have gone for hand-to-hand combat, when we are called to walk in peace, so that the God of peace will soon crush Satan under our feet. And when he crushes Satan under our feet, we stand firm. And what do we do next? We put the helmet of salvation, not to protect us. That salvation is eternal. Nobody can steal it, even if they attempt. It's for the unsafe to see it. And what do you get next? The sword of the Spirit, the rhema of God. And what do you do finally? You pray, pray, pray for all the saints and for those from among the saints that are going out into new territory, that they may speak with, say it, boldness, with boldness. And boldness here means peace to those that curse us. Do you see what I see here, folks? When you study 1 Timothy chapter 2, and we are instructed to pray for everybody, everywhere, because God wishes everybody to be saved. Even though God wishes everybody to be saved, there is no promise that anyone will come to Christ. It's a mystery that only God knows the answer. But we are given a promise that if you pray for everybody with clean hands, without anger and without division, godliness will increase. Which means you go back to work tomorrow and you walk your workplace and you bless everybody that hurt you there. And you walk your neighborhood and you bless everybody in your neighborhood. And when you have prayer walk the entire city, consistently blessing everybody, avoiding all the jurisdictions, now the devil falls. When the devil falls, the demons flee. When the demons flee, all he can do is fire from a distance. Look how the Gospel of Luke ends. Luke 24:47. And that repentance for forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all the nations, beginning from Jerusalem. Contrast this with Luke 4:25 through 27, when there was an attempt to kill Jesus by his friends and neighbors. Why did they try to kill him? Not because he told them, I'm the Messiah. They liked that. They tried to kill him because he told them this salvation is for the nations. That's what the devil couldn't stomach. And how does the gospel end? This gospel is going to the nations. Who won? Jesus. Question: when is a city rich for Christ? When the reverse of Matthew 9:36 has happened. Matthew 9:36 says, and seeing the multitudes, he felt compassion for them, because they were distressed and downcast like sheep without a shepherd. When every lost sheep has a pastor, you have reached a city for Christ. When everybody in your neighborhood is blessed in the morning as you go out, and blessed in the evening as you come in, when all the jurisdictions are voided and godliness increases, then that neighborhood, that workplace, that city has been reached for Christ. Application time. Folks, listen carefully to the Holy Spirit. It's so simple that we miss it because we are looking for a more complex solution. And it's so simple. The early church had an IQ lower than ours, an education lower than ours, much less resources than we do. Why did they succeed? Because they knew how to do greater works to change the climate. And once you change the climate, the devil is in the offensive and on the defensive because you are on the offensive. Would you make an application now? Would you make a decision? Think of the safest place you have spiritually. Geographically, what is that place? For me, it's my study. There I have my Bible, no radio, no television, no magazine, nothing. Bible and God, and my praise music. Rarely a demon will venture into my study. I get the intercessors one or twice a year, just to certify a demon-free. They pray and anoint it with oil. So that's a safe place. Why can't I have the same safety all over the neighborhood? I could, if I choose to walk in peace. Because an environment becomes unfriendly when there is a broken relationship. But when you mend the relationship, or you bless the one that is cursing you, you void the jurisdiction, and now the devil is moved back. I play a little bit of chess. And if you play chess, you know that players that are outstanding can think 3 moves ahead. If you can think 3 moves ahead, you win all the matches. If you can think 2 moves ahead, you win most of your matches. If you think 1 move at a time, you lose all of your matches. If we can think 2 moves ahead of the devil because we have cleansed our hands and we have voided the jurisdiction, now we are in control. Now the devil has to fight an uphill battle. Does this make sense, folks? Father, speak to us even more. We need your voice loud and clear. We need your word validated in our hearts, that we will see that the kingdom of darkness is weak and frail if we are strong in Christ. In Jesus' name.